Welcome, friends, it's the Movie Film Podcast. Movie Film Podcast, enjoy the show. Zaki and Brian are talking about movies. Movie Film Podcast on the radio.
Welcome to Movie Film. This is episode 82, brought to you by Mr. Boy Productions. My name is Zaki Hassan, and with me, as always, my good friend Brian Hall.
Huh? Oh, hey there, Zaki.
Did we catch you in the middle of something?
Yeah, no, I was just chilling out here on the veranda, and we're doing a show. This is great. Let's do it.
Why not? Why not? It's been a while. Let's do it.
Yeah.
So, hey, bunch of new releases that are out. This is actually, this is. I think we've said this before. This is sort of a marker of our gradually encroaching geezerhood, where the end of year movies are more exciting to us than the summer movies.
Yeah,
starting to happen a little bit.
Yeah, that's true.
So it's kind of fun for me, right? Because this is my first year in the San Francisco Film Critics Circle, and so I am now in that phase of the year where I start receiving screeners.
Oh,
specifically, I have like a wheelbarrow full of DVDs backed up to my house every day, basically.
Zaki,
yes. Is
there any greater feeling?
Well, it's actually the worst feeling because I have no time to watch all these movies.
I was gonna say there's just nothing better when you see the trailer for something like Joy, the David O. Russell movie and Jennifer Lawrence, and then all of a sudden that screener ends up in your hands. You're like, nice.
What's funny is I got a screener. I got a bunch of really great screeners. I got one. It's a 4-year consideration, Furious 7.
Well, Vin Diesel himself said he thought it was going to win an Oscar. So,
well, it's like I appreciate the gumption that goes into that. It's like, well, that's I won't consider it, but I appreciate you asking me to.
Yeah. Well, you got to think. I didn't expect to talk about this, but I saw the Mission Impossible 5 screener. Did you get that?
I have not yet.
And I was like, I love that movie. It's probably one of my favorites of the year, but costs a lot of money to make these. They got to buy a lot of these discs. Do they really feel like Tom Cruise is going to win Best Actor?
Right.
For Mission Impossible.
Not just that, and they tell you to destroy it right after you watch it.
Yeah, which does not happen. You just pass it around among friends. Right. And by the way, thanks everybody.
So hey, have you seen anything new out right now?
I did. We have 2 overlaps in this one. Oh. One big one we'll talk about later. But first of all, I saw the Peanuts movie.
Okay, Peanuts. I saw Peanuts.
Is it called Peanuts? I didn't know if it's called the Peanuts movie or Peanuts. But anyway.
The Peanuts movie, yes.
It's a hard movie to say quickly. That's you're true. Like, I love peanuts.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like, it's just, come on. It just doesn't sound right. So I grew up with Peanuts. I really love the Christmas special. I think, that's pretty ubiquitous and pretty well known. I even grew up reading the comic strips. I'm pretty familiar with all the side characters and everything. And so, when you hear that a major studio is making a movie with Charlie Brown and Snoopy, you're like, ugh. You picture them dancing to like Kanye West and talking about getting crunk and stuff. And so I went and saw this hoping it would be good because I thought the look of this movie, immediately when you saw the first trailer, you're like, oh, they nailed it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I came away actually enjoying it quite a bit. I don't think it's going to change the world. I don't think it's even like the best, family film ever made. But like I said, being a fan of these characters and of this world, I found it like really pleasant and enjoyable. So
I found the nap that I took while watching the movie very pleasant and enjoyable. So I have pleasant memories too. I don't remember anything about the movie because I was asleep. I think my kids liked it. I don't know. But I was asleep.
Well, what's interesting about it, and I'm curious if this has to do with you being a father that you fell asleep, or my brother asked. Well, my brother was like, "Did it feel as weirdly paced as the shows?" And I said yes.
Yeah, I think that's true.
It is weirdly paced, and I kind of appreciated it in a weird way. If it had been a little bit tighter and a little bit more modern, only in its storytelling, I don't think that would have been the worst thing in the world. And what I mean by that is they really did preserve the tone of the world of Peanuts, because Charlie Brown's still a sad sack. Like, they didn't like lighten him up. they don't have iPhones. You know, I mean, they really did keep it the way that it's pretty familiar to most people. But they did like the specials, because usually the specials, if you watch the Christmas special, which is of course beloved, but it is really vignette-y. You know, it's like it's really just this segment, then this segment, then this segment, then this segment. And that's because they really did just animate a bunch of strips. And I felt like this movie did that as well. Like it felt like there was this segment, then this segment, then this segment. And I enjoyed all those segments, but then I was happy that all those segments paid off as a whole at the end. Yeah. So I thought they stayed true to the sort of slower, nicely paced spirit of it. But it did actually all come together at the end and add up to something. So
I agree with that.
Yeah, I think if you're a fan of Peanuts, you will like it. But I could see if you're not, I could see people being bored, like you said.
If you're a fan of Sleep, you may also like it. So. I was actually looking forward to seeing it. I think I was just really, really tired.
Sure.
And so, you know, I'm finding that because the screening was like a weekend morning. I think it was like Sunday morning at 10 or some such thing. So I took my three older boys, and again, you know, it's kind of a fun thing. But these early morning kiddie movie screenings are like nap time for me.
Right. That's funny.
So, I saw a new movie that's coming out later this week called Spotlight.
Which, I'm just starting to see things for this, TV spots and stuff.
This is fantastic. I cannot recommend it enough. I loved it.
Yeah.
You know me. I'm a really big fan of sort of these journalistic, investigative thriller type movies. State of Play is a favorite of mine. This is very much in that vein. In fact, it has Rachel McAdams in it as basically the same character she played in State of Play. And it's, I mean, just fantastic cast. It's Michael Keaton, Mark Ruffalo, Rachel McAdams, as I mentioned, Liev Schreiber, who else? Oh my gosh, John Slattery, just a top drawer cast from stem to stern, and just really, really good. It's a true story about the investigation into child abuse in the Boston Archdiocese, and sort of the rapidly unfolding, like how that was found out to be this very deep thing that had been going on for a long time. It happened. It's weird, by the way, because it's set in 2001, and it's, you know, it's obviously this period piece, and it's weird to be in this frame of mind where we're like, oh, it's 2001, and it's like 15 years ago. So for Whoa. 2001 doesn't feel that old to us, you know?
No.
So it's like being in the 80s watching a movie about the 60s or something, you know?
That's weird.
Yeah. You know, they've got these old-timey flip phones, you know, and stuff like that. But it's
That's
fantastic.
weird that you said old-timey flip phone.
Yeah, that too. Exactly.
There are old-timey cell phones now.
It's true. But it's fantastic. Yeah, it opens wide later this week, and absolutely go see it. I can't recommend it enough. One of my favorites of the year.
Wow. Okay, cool.
Yeah. But moving on, we have a listener letter here that I wanted to get your take on. This is from Johnny, who emailed us at moviefilmpodcast@gmail.com. And he says, it always seems odd to me when we adjust movie grosses for inflation, like saying Gone with the Wind is still the number one movie of all time. Mm-hmm. Would love you guys' thoughts. Is that a fair way to compare box office? And this is an interesting one because I've thought about this too, that the notion that, well, if you adjust for inflation, then this movie from like 75 years ago is still, you know, that doesn't seem like an apt comparison, because tickets back in the day cost, you know, it was like 2 Bs to a nickel, I think, right?
Give me 2 Bs, you'd say.
Right. I mean, you know, there was less competition. Tickets were less. I mean, there were all these extenuating factors that make it difficult to compare, you know, a movie from, forget 75 years ago, 20 years ago,
right,
or 30 years ago, or 15 years ago to right now.
So you're saying it's unfair in which way? To like praise something like, which we liked, Jurassic World, but Jurassic World is now like in the top 5 grossing films of all time or something.
Sure, that's a good example, yeah.
So like, is that, I don't know if fair is the right word, but is that like really that noble, or is it just like great that IMAX tickets cost $25? You know what I mean? Like,
well, that's
is that what you're
thing,
saying?
Right? Well, I think I think that my sense from the question is it fair to be like, well, that's not as impressive as the original Jurassic Park doing this much. So in other words, using older box office to sort of stamp on more recent box office.
That kind of depends. I guess it depends which way I'm looking at it, because you look at something like Gone with the Wind, which will probably be number one like forever, if you look at it this way.
Yeah.
And that is really, really impressive. You know what I mean? If this many people, I mean, think of the culture we live in now. Like, movies have always been popular and whatnot, but I feel like we're really living in a culture where so many more people are aware of movie making and this, the process, and thanks to the internet, and people who maybe wouldn't pay close attention to the filmmakers are now, like, it's in the culture.
Yeah.
Thanks to the internet, more so than maybe it's ever been. So the fact that a movie from 1939 still drew more people in than the highest grossing movie, in our era, I think that will forever be impressive. Right? Sure.
And, and just to play devil's advocate, I think one thing is back in the day, they didn't have IMAX and 3D and all this other stuff, which has made the theater going experience fundamentally different than what it used to be.
Mm-hmm. Or television. That was where they saw moving pictures.
I mean, we talked about it a few episodes ago. There were like 57 Blondie movies.
Yeah.
Blondie. Think about that. Blondie is about a guy who makes tall sandwiches.
Right. Well, I that's true. You're right. I forgot about that. But when I hear that Minions is the highest grossing animated movie of all time, not to take anything away from Minions, but I'm like, who cares? You know what I mean? Like, that's not impressive. Like, I'm not impressed anymore. When you hear that, and when I hear, again, even Jurassic World, the top 5 movie of all time, it's like, okay.
And for your consideration, Furious 7 is also in the top 5 of all time.
Absolutely. And you know what? Furious 8 will probably be there too, and usurp that one. And then every year, whatever the top movies of the year are, they're just going to keep. It's going to become a little bit.
It's funny because I was watching a little bit of E.T. Earlier this week, and I was telling my wife, I was like, E.T. was number one at the box office from like 1982 to 1987, like 15 years. It was the number one movie of all time, and now I don't even know where E.T. is in the rankings.
Right.
But I mean, you know what I mean? There was a while there where it was pretty much the city on the hill there.
Well, and this is kind of another conversation, but E.T. or like Star Wars or something like that. Let's go with E.T. E.T. for our generation is just like, it transcends. You know what I mean? Like, that's something, you don't have to like the movie, but like, what it is, and that it was like a cultural touchstone, right? But now it feels like, we've talked about this before, but I don't feel like there really are very many cultural touchstones anymore. There are mega successes, and there are things that everybody sees, but then they're just as quickly forgotten.
Sure, absolutely.
And they don't make impressions, and they don't resonate 10 years later. And
but you know what though, Brian? Part of that is probably just you and me, and people like us.
I wonder. I really wonder. I mean, I agree mostly with what you're saying, but I just wonder too if the fact that things are so quickly replaced, there's a new big movie every week, there's just no way anything can, like, I mean, what am I trying to say? Like, for someone who's like, for someone who's like 13 right now, I doubt Furious 7 or some other movie like that is going to be like their E.T. or something.
Well, okay. Well,
their culture's E.T. I don't think it's possible culturally to have another movie like that.
But that, you know why? But that's because Fallout 4 is their E.T.
Yes, there's so much more now.
Yeah.
I think that's what it is.
Well, and I mean, obviously, as we're talking about E.T. being this cultural touchstone, I mean, I think that's a good segue into some of the big headlines to talk about. And right up top, a little bit of sad news. Melissa Matheson passed away. Melissa Matheson, of course, best known as screenwriter of E.T. She was also married to Harrison Ford for quite a while there. And I wanted to get your take on this. I mean, given we all know how important E.T. was to the growth of Lil Brian.
Very true.
It's actually kind of, I mean, not funny, but I happened to see Harrison Ford on. I'm sure you saw this. He made an appearance on Jimmy Kimmel's show a week or so ago on Halloween. On Halloween,
Harrison Ford did.
Harrison Ford, yeah, and he was dressed up as a dog wearing a hot dog suit. And by the way, you need to watch this because I'm pretty sure he was drunk as a skunk. he belched live on TV. Right?
I like, though, that as much of a curmudgeon as he seems, I love that he like shows up and does this stuff.
Yeah, well, no, hey, I mean, it made for great TV,
Sure,
but anyway,
sure.
So I saw that, and then I kind of like, how do you do this where you're watching something on TV and then you just randomly look up stuff on Wikipedia?
Oh, sure.
This all the time. So I was looking up this thing, and then there was the thing about Melissa Matheson. And I was like, oh, what's Melissa Matheson up to? And I was like reading her wiki bio, and I was just talking about what she's done since E.T., et cetera. And then, like, literally the next day, she passed away.
Oh, wow.
And it was weird to to go to her wiki page then, and there's like from this date to this date, and there, you know what I mean?
Yep.
And that wasn't there 24 hours earlier.
Wow. Huh.
It's weird, like just by chance I was on her wiki page. So that news kind of hit me in this weird way. But I mean, talk a little bit about E.T. and about Melissa Matheson's work on that script.
Well, I think a lot of people would say, arguably, that E.T. is Steven Spielberg's masterpiece. And I mean, that's saying something, right?
Sure.
Because I mean, Raiders, and I mean, I feel like Close Encounters was one of his most personal movies, and then I think E.T. was where he nailed it for himself. Sure. And I feel like he told everything about that movie is like his sensibilities perfectly honed. But the thing I think people forget is, you're like a Steven Spielberg film. He doesn't write his movies, aside from two of them, Close Encounters and one other one I can't think of off the top of my head. He has these writers write these things. And E.T. doesn't just stand on its visuals. Like, E.T. is a brilliant story. And it just nails childhood. Like it nails like the feeling of this boy who feels isolated with his older brother and his friends and not fitting in, and his father's gone, and you get this poor single mother that the kids can't quite understand the pain that she's going through, and then with this little alien visitor, the gaps it fills into his life and the special bond that they make. I mean, that's visually amazing, but it's all on the page. Huh. And I think, Melissa Matheson, I'm very much aware of who she is because of my, deep love of that movie. But like, I think it's easy to forget that she is hugely responsible for why that movie is so great.
Yeah.
And so, I think going through her credits, I actually thought she had written a couple other things. It's kind of interesting. For having written some great scripts like The Black Stallion, E.T., she hasn't written a whole lot else, which I found kind of surprising. But she did write Steven Spielberg's latest film, which he's currently wrapping up, the BFG, Big Friendly Giant, which is kind of interesting, isn't it? Like another sort of family fantasy kind of thing. And
so that'll be a posthumous release for her.
Exactly. Yeah. So I mean, it's really sad, definitely.
And she was relatively young, it's
65. Yeah.
Yeah, so she had been dealing with cancer. But we do have some other headlines to discuss, so I wanted to real briefly get into those. Unfortunately, we've talked before about how they're planning to make more Die Hard movies, and we have this weird thing where it's like we're all kind of like, oh God, here it comes. But we'll probably we'll watch another Die Hard probably, right? Mm-hmm. But this new plan, which actually the news has been out there for a while, and I've actually have not discussed it with you at all. The plan now is so cockamamie it sort of defies all description. But the plan is to now do a series of Die Hard prequels.
Yes.
I mean, that's it.
Yeah.
What else can you say? So let me just now this is from AV Club, and admittedly it's sort of filtered through their sort of jaundiced prism, but I honestly think that this perfectly sums up how asinine this is. And here's the headline: it says Die Hard 6 to go back in time and ruin Die Hard once and for all. So I'm going to quote some of the article here. Finally realizing that to truly kill Die Hard, they must first travel back and destroy what made the original film so great. The shadowy cabal of directors, writers, and producers who've devoted themselves to transforming John McTiernan's 1988 classic into a cavalcade of cartoon nonsense have hatched their most devious scheme to date. Fronted by Live Free or Die Hard director Len Wiseman and abetted by #1 Die Hard defiler Bruce Willis, the team has launched a truly audaciously bad idea for the already inherently awful idea of making a Die Hard 6, making the movie a prequel. And it's still in early talks, but Bruce Willis, by the way, is like, he's on board for this. He thinks it's a great idea. It says the apparent plan is to open and close the film with scenes of Willis as a now permanently sleepy-eyed John McClane, providing the series' last remaining fan, veterinarian Larry Squabdale of Hasselback, New Jersey, with the yippee-ki-yays and mother effing he so desperately craves. But in between those grumbly bookends, the film will devote most of its runtime to McClane's career as a cop in, quote, gritty 1979 New York, all the better to show, quote, how he became a die-hard kind of guy. This, even though the single most important aspect of the original Die Hard's greatness, outside of Willis's long-consumed stores of smirking, smarmy charm, was the idea that John McClane was just a regular cop, desperately improvising in an impossible situation. This sounds like just a horrendous idea.
Look, all right. I think it's a terrible idea, like, period. However.
Oh, no.
I always want to believe there's a good idea or a good version of everything. I can kind of see it. And let me explain. Think of like a series of novels, right? And you have a character that you just really like the Fletch books or something like that, right? Like detective novels. John McClane is a cool character, and it would be interesting to see him in different scenarios. The problem, I think, is when you don't just let him be him, and you keep trying to recreate the same movie over again unsuccessfly.
Okay. So Die Hard 2, for example.
I know people don't like that one. I
like it.
The one. Oh, okay. I was going to say, because I saw it when I was young, and to me...
But it is, I mean, it's like a replica of the first movie. I mean... yes.
Okay. Right? I see what you're saying now. Yes. And see, and I'm really looking at this from the successful execution of this idea, and like I can see where there's a successful execution of this idea. Okay, but we all know that's not going to happen. So ultimately, they shouldn't do it.
Okay,
does that make sense?
It absolutely does.
Okay. Could you even possibly agree with me on that? That there is potentially a decent version that could exist of this?
Well, apparently, and I haven't read it, but there's a comic book from a couple of years ago called Die Hard Year One.
Really?
Which is actually this. It's about John McClane as like a beat cop. I have not read that. I've heard it's okay, but I would imagine it works as like a one-off comic and not a movie that you pay to see.
Yeah, because I think that's another thing too, is it's not going to be Bruce Willis playing this young cop. So it's going to be someone imitating Bruce Willis.
That's right.
For 2 hours, and then trying to make him as recognizable in scenarios and catchphrases and whatever from that one movie. You know what I mean?
Here's what the AV Club article says, just to piggyback off what you're saying. Now we can look forward to some new young actor squinting his way through trips to the explosion factory and deploying his best Bruce Willis impression to crack wise at a bunch of winking hints to the original film.
Yep.
Boy, it sure would suck to get that in my feet, he'll quip, staring at a not yet broken window. Ho, ho, ho. Why, Santa, that's a heck of a line. Oh, geez, my gun is stuck to my back. Why does this always happen? We don't know, young actor pretending to be Bruce Willis in our hypothetical Die Hard situation. We don't know why anything happens anymore.
Who wrote that?
This is by William Hughes at AV Club.
William Hughes, bravo. Why is this gun always stuck to my back? Dude, that's why it won't be good, because it will be, obviously it won't be that, but it will be that.
Well, it's kind of like they made this movie called Hannibal Rising.
Yeah.
Maybe like 10 years ago or whatever. I don't remember when, but it's like a Hannibal Lecter prequel. And I didn't see the movie, but just in the ads, they try to find a way to incorporate the iconography of that mask that he wore in Silence of the Lambs, which if you've seen Silence of the Lambs, that mask is like, it's not some ritualistic secret identity thing. It's a specific scenario that ends up putting that on his face. Right.
Right.
So, so it's kind of that same thing. Like, oh, see, look, because one day he's going to have the thing,
Yeah.
So anyway, so Die Hard 6, back to the Die Hard or whatever they're going to call it.
Right.
We can look forward to that soon. So thank you, Hollywood.
Yeah. Thanks, guys.
In other thank you, Hollywood news, Ridley Scott's Alien prequel, which is a Prometheus sequel. We talked about it before. It's called Alien Paradise Lost.
Yes.
So despite my protestations to the contrary, this movie is getting made.
Right.
It is happening. And we know it's happening because Neil Blomkamp's Alien movie is not happening because Ridley Scott's Alien movie is happening.
Maybe.
Now, here's a tweet that Neil Blomkamp put out. And we talked about this before on the show. But the plan was that Neil Blomkamp was going to do a sequel that would pick up in the later part of the chronology, so we'd see Ripley again, and he'd somehow bring back
Aliens. There's going to be a sequel to Aliens and negate 3 and 4.
Exactly, or so they said, right?
Yeah.
So a tweet from Neil Blomkamp, he says, Alien is kind of holding, pending Prometheus 2, so I shall be working on other things as much as I love the Xenomorph, and Lieutenant Ripley. Now, I would say that this is bad news. However, I've seen Chappie. Maybe it's not bad news.
Doesn't that suck? Seriously, I mean, I still love District 9. I didn't see Elysium, but I want to feel like, you know what? He just needs to not write his own stuff.
Okay.
That's what I think. I think he needs to get a great script, and he will make a great movie. And there's nothing wrong with that, right?
Yeah, it's a Shyamalan situation.
Yeah, I mean, even though he did write those the ones that were good, though.
That's
right.
True.
But I mean,
but Blomkamp wrote his ones that are good too. His one that is good. His two. Yeah. I mean, I liked Elysium. I know I'm in the minority on that one, but I did like it.
Well, I just mean if he's given something strong, you know he's going to visualize it in a fantastic way, like in a capable, well realized way. It's his story. I haven't liked. Well, I didn't see Elysium, so I can only complain about Chappie, but I just hated the story and I hated the characters.
Yeah, Chappie was crappy. Yeah.
Yeah. But Chappie looked unbelievable. Like that robot looked amazing. The world looked amazing. So he's obviously talented.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
Well, when we talk about these realms of sci-fi, obviously we've got the big one, Star Wars, to talk about. But real briefly before we talk about that, Star Trek news. I'm excited. I'm probably the only one that's excited among the two of us. But Star Trek is coming back. You're like yawning. I can see. No. Star Trek is coming back to television. And this is cool. Here's why. I'll tell you why. So this would be the 6th Star Trek series. There have been 5 previous shows, 6 previous actually, if you include the animated series. So this would technically be the 7th Star Trek TV series. And Star Trek is owned by CBS, and so they're bringing it back, but not for broadcast.
What?
It's kind of interesting. Now, CBS has an online storefront, I guess you'd call it, called CBS All Access, which is kind of
warning. Sorry. So
it's called CBS All Access, and it's essentially their version of Netflix that you would pay.
That no one knows about.
That no one knows about because, I mean, let's face it. Would you pay $6 a month to watch Big Bang Theory?
Absolutely not.
Exactly. So it's been around for a little while. Nobody's really watched it. Nobody knows about it. It's $5.99 a month. And so what CBS has decided, which if you ask me is kind of brilliant, they're saying, okay, we're producing a new Star Trek series. We'll air the first episode on CBS, but after that, you got to watch it online.
You got to pirate it online. Got it.
Yeah. I mean,
I'm sorry. No, I'm not endorsing that.
I mean, well, yeah, and a lot of people will find ways of doing that. But I mean, if you want to launch a risky new platform for content, what better property to use than something that has a deep indentured fan base?
That is very true. I'm not a Howard Stern guy. I know a lot of people that are, but that's kind of what he did, right? Like he left radio where he was accessible to everybody, and then he's like, okay, you can pay for me now. And goes over to satellite radio, and it's like, well, I mean, I've talked to a lot of people. They got satellite radio because they wanted to follow him. Yeah. So will people? And that's the thing too. It's $6 a month. Do you want to pay $6 a month for new Star Trek?
I personally do not.
Right.
I'm a fan, but I don't. Because I know I'll get to watch it eventually anyway. So.
Yeah. So that's kind of the thing. That's what's weird about it, because they're, with Netflix, they're offering House of Cards and Kimmy Schmidt and BoJack Horseman and all that stuff. You can't get that anywhere else.
Yeah.
And on top of that, they have movies.
Yeah.
They're worth paying for, in my opinion.
Sure.
But CBS, their internet service or whatever you want to call it, network, it's all stuff that's available for free already.
Yeah.
So it's kind of weird to me.
Yeah.
I don't quite get it.
So this show is not going to premiere until January of 2017. So it's a little while yet. It's being supervised by Alex Kurtzman, who co-wrote the previous two Star Trek films. So one presumes this will be set in the same rebooted timeline as the current movie series is right now, of which the third movie is coming out in next year. I don't know when it's coming out. But that's directed by Justin Lin. And so I'm interested. I'm interested in following this story. I mean, this could be potentially a game changer, or an asterisk.
Well, I feel like, and not to diminish what you just said, I feel like Netflix was the game changer, right?
Sure.
So I feel like this is, can someone else do it?
Can networks do it themselves?
Yeah. Yeah,
So,
I feel like
that could potentially be a game changer, right?
This has worked. Yeah, so you're right. Like, this has worked. But those were sort of unique circumstances. Can other people follow suit?
Yeah. So
we'll see.
kind of interesting. We'll see about that. But of course, the Star Trek reboot is it all happened because of J.J. Abrams, and he's got a small indie project that's coming up in a couple weeks. That a little micro budget indie that it needs all the hype it can get. Why don't you tell us about that?
Well, Star Wars: The Force Awakens. I saw a little thing on Facebook where the day it turned November, they're like, Star Wars officially opens next month. It's just funny, the countdown, the way people are looking at it. But J.J. Abrams just did an interview with Wired magazine. Did you read this?
Yes, I did.
Highly recommended. If you have any interest in this movie, which I think a lot of people do. I go Google this Wired magazine J.J. Abrams interview. It's they ask him a lot about what it was like writing with Lawrence Kasdan, what it was like trying to integrate new stories with the old characters, and not only that, but set threads that are going to carry for 3 films forward. How do you work with the filmmakers moving ahead when they're going to make their very own films?
And he talks about working with Rian Johnson, who's directing episode 8.
Yeah, and he's saying, what I thought was kind of interesting and I didn't even think about was, how much is he setting into place? How much is J.J. Abrams responsible for the next 3 films?
Sure.
Because he's laying the groundwork. And it sounded like, he compared it to A New Hope, where it was like, you try to set up this universe that feels like it has a history, but you want it to feel like a conclusion as well. Like the end of that film needs to feel like it has a conclusion, but you also need to set up things that can carry on for what's obviously going to be, Disney hopes, a lucrative franchise for at least 10, 20, 30 years.
Again, the interview is up there. It's on Wired.com. Absolutely fantastic. Really, his insights into why he is the right guy to be doing this, and sort of his insight into himself, I found incredibly refreshing.
Yeah, can we talk about that for a second? He basically admitted that Super 8 wasn't a great movie.
Yeah, so he agreed with me,
which I found really fascinating, actually.
Yeah. And also Star Trek Into Darkness. He admitted that too.
Right.
So again, JJ, you should. I mean, I'm way ahead of you, man. So
it takes a big man to admit those things. I think
it takes a big man to agree with me. So, but yeah, and again, the countdown is on. So we're now into single digit weeks.
Yeah, and at the very least, after reading this, whether or not the movie is good, in people's opinions, you cannot blame the guy for trying. This is a guy who's truly, truly trying to make something that everyone's going to love. So,
and it is the most thankless job on earth right now. Right. He will either be loved or loathed by pretty much half the population. So,
yeah.
So we do have a new trailer to discuss, Brian. I know you, man. This is.
I'm sighing because I know where this is going.
Well, I know that you sigh when you're excited.
Yeah.
So this is a movie you've been looking forward to for a long time.
Which is
for 2 long years. It is not Olympus Has Fallen, but the continuation of that epic saga. I'm talking, of course, about London Has Fallen.
Zaki. Friend, why do I feel such disdain toward these movies?
Well, let's first play some of the audio from this trailer.
Okay.
And then we can get back to your disdain.
Hell of a presidential race, sir.
Every day the same damn joke.
What the hell they make you out of? Bourbon and poor choices.
With security at unprecedented levels, this isn't just a gathering of the world's most powerful leaders. It is the most protected event on Earth.
Welcome to London, Mr. President.
What's wrong?
Nothing.
Bugs the hell out of me. Get down!
An attack has decimated the British capital.
5 of the world's leaders are now dead.
Stay with me. We'll get you out of here.
Okay, so Olympus Has Fallen. You like Olympus Has Fallen, didn't you? Weren't you a fan of that one?
I don't think I was.
Okay, I'm joking. I'm pretty sure.
Well, there's 2 of them. There was White House Down, and there was Olympus Has Fallen.
And again, White House Down is a better movie.
Yeah. Yes.
It's not. I'm not saying one is. Yeah. I mean, if we're comparing, it's a difference of degrees.
I just remember I've blocked a lot of it from my mind. I was watching it with someone I was dating at the time. I remember they were really put off by how violent it was. It was surprisingly violent.
Oh yeah, sure.
for what it was.
There's like a 5-minute sequence where they just beat the shit out of Melissa Leo.
Yes. And remember that? And then she starts singing the Star Spangled Banner as they're kicking the crap out of her.
It was incredibly off-putting.
And I remember being like, she is in another movie, man. she's
going
for an Oscar. Yeah. But then it's they just have these glorified shots of all these innocent people just being mowed down by helicopter bullets, and Gerard Butler is kind of trying to do this John McClane thing, but I just remember something about it just did not come together for me. I don't know. I really don't know how to describe it, but I'm in the theater getting excited for Spectre, and then the trailer for London Has Fallen starts, and I'm not kidding. I just zoned out. I think I started looking at my popcorn. I just stopped thinking about what was happening. And I'm going to be honest with you. I can't fairly talk about this trailer because I don't remember what happened because I wasn't paying attention.
I watched it, and my first thought was, wait, is Aaron Eckhart still the president?
Yes.
This guy has the worst luck of many presidents,
But I don't dislike either of them.
No.
That's the thing. I just don't know what it is about these movies that make me shut down.
Well, I mean, it's you know, I mean, we were talking about Die Hard earlier. I mean, I think it's Die Hard is a situation specific franchise.
Yeah.
And that's what's made the sequels kind of fall apart a little bit, is because you can't, you know, there's like a specific mojo in that first movie. And this is just in a, you know, not to say that Olympus Has Fallen compares to Die Hard, except on the most superficial level, but to sequelize it, it's like, again, it's like, how do you engineer that same scenario again and not have all the characters look like idiots, except for, you know, whatever Mike, what's his name? I don't even know. Mike.
I don't know. Probably like Mike Steele
Butler
or something. Yeah.
You know, Morgan Freeman just looks angry at himself for being in this movie.
Yeah. Hey, and you know what? I know some people are going to say like, dude, it's just popcorn entertainment and I love it. And I say, that's great. Like
Sure.
I've got my versions of that too. I just don't know. I don't know what's wrong with me.
Well, it's directed not by Antoine Fuqua, who did the first one, but because presumably he had better things to do, you know. It's directed by Babak Najafi, who I've never heard of, and it has a budget of $100 million, which is actually like, they'll make that back.
Oh, sure. I mean, worldwide.
Worldwide.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, this thing will make like 250 to 300 worldwide. That's my prediction.
Yeah, that sounds about right. Well, it's got the international thing going on.
Yeah, exactly. It's London now. So,
yeah.
So we can all look forward to London Has Fallen, and I'm sure we'll be talking about it after it opens March of next year.
Yeah.
Well, moving on, we're joined now by a special guest. Bruce Scivally is with us. Bruce, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Can you hear me?
I can, yeah. Thank you so much for joining us. Now, Bruce, I've been a big fan of your writing for a long time. Bruce is an internationally recognized authority in pop culture. He's a writer, filmmaker, lecturer, teacher. He's the author of Billion Dollar Batman, Superman on film, television, radio, and Broadway, and James Bond: The Legacy, which I'm currently rereading right now. It's sitting next to my bed right now. And his new book is Dracula FAQ, and this just came out at the end of October. And Dracula FAQ unearths little-known facts about both the historical and literary Dracula. It covers all the stage and screen Dracula, as well as the many similar blood-sucking characters he inspired, from Barnabas Collins of Dark Shadows to the Night Stalker to the Vampires of True Blood and the Vampire Diaries on the small screen, and Interview with the Vampire in Twilight on the big screen. So we're very excited to talk Dracula and James Bond with Bruce. Again, thank you so much for joining us.
Well, thanks for inviting me.
So Bruce, talk to us about Dracula FAQ. What brought you to the point where this was your next project after the other books that you've written?
Well, actually, it wasn't originally. I'd begun working on a book on Tarzan films, of all things, because I used to love Tarzan movies when I was a kid, and was just getting pretty deep into the research for that when my book agent told me about this FAQ series that Hal Leonard has, and says, gee, I think you'd be a natural for this series. You should put in some proposals to him. So I sent a list of about 15 or 20 things I thought I could write about, and they chose Dracula, which is kind of interesting because years ago, back around 1990 or so, I had started thinking I might write a book about Dracula and was doing some research way back then and never got around to really getting into it. So you might say this book was a long time coming.
About 25 years.
About that, yep.
So now you mentioned Tarzan. I think it's interesting that a character like Tarzan has, to some extent, faded from sort of being in the forefront of popular culture in a way that Dracula has not. Every couple years, we have a new version of Dracula. And I mean, it's a cliche at this point to say, but why is the character so immortal?
Well, I think the themes that Dracula deals with are pretty immortal, life and death, and that sort of, there's a lot of sexuality and sensuality in the vampire mythos, which I think is why ultimately it's going to outlive the zombie craze that's been going on for the past 5 or 10 years,
Interesting.
So yeah, I think there's just a lot more there for people to sink their teeth into. To pardon that.
Well, and I mean, you cover all this in the book, but in big picture terms, what would you think of as the most effective and least effective on-screen Draculas?
I'm a big fan of the Frank Langella Dracula, but I will have to say, the first one I saw as a kid was Bela Lugosi on television, which, at about 5 or 6 years old, scared the dickens out of me. You see it now, and it's like, there's nothing that scary about it, but just the idea at that time that this guy's dead and he's walking around and so on was pretty frightening. And I'll have to say, too, I did go recently when Fathom Events had their the double feature of Dracula and Spanish Dracula on the big screen.
The Spanish one, yeah.
Yeah, I went to see that a couple of weeks ago, and here in Evanston there were maybe about 35, 40 people at the theater, and seeing it on the big screen, there's a power and presence that Lugosi has on screen that you don't get from watching it on television,
Sure.
So when it was over, everyone in the theater just spontaneously applauded.
Wow.
The first time I've heard applause in the theater in quite a while.
It's fascinating to me that Lugosi is so firmly associated with Dracula when in fact he only played the character twice, and once was comedically.
Yes, although in the Abbott and Costello film, I mean, he pointed out when he agreed to take that film, the monsters themselves aren't played for laughs so much.
Very true.
Abbott and Costello are getting all the laughs, and the monsters are just kind of doing what the monsters do. A few comedic moments here and there, but they're not lampooned.
Yeah, I watch Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein with my kids all the time, and that I love the fact that they scream in terror just as much as they laugh when they're watching that movie.
Yeah, it's a great little film.
It holds up, yeah. I know, some people kind of look at the monster crossovers with Abbott and Costello as like we were talking about, like in some way diminishing those monsters, but I don't necessarily view it that way. And I think I'm biased because I think for me and for a lot of people, those movies were our first exposure to the Universal monsters.
Well, could be. I mean, a little different for me because, again, I was of the shock theater generation, so when I was a kid,
Sure.
Saturday nights would be those old Universal horror films on TV,
Now, you mentioned this in the book, and I was wondering if you could talk to our readers about this. There was a film that just came out last year called Dracula Untold, and what was your take on that? This is meant to be kind of relaunching the Universal monsters.
Yeah, that was their idea, is that they'd relaunch the monster series with that film, but it didn't quite gel for me. And I think, I think they made a bit of a mistake by trying to weld Vlad the Impaler and Dracula and present him as kind of a nice guy.
Sure.
So to me, Dracula is not necessarily a nice guy. He can be the tragic romantic heroes in the Frank Langella version, but to just be sort of the family man trying to protect his family and his village and so on, that's, to me, the real Dracula-esque vampire, that piece, was the character played by Charles Dance.
Sure.
Yeah.
Now, so I mean, to that end, what would you consider the some of the lesser Draculas of the screen?
Billy the Kid versus Dracula, perhaps. Dracula, Frankenstein. There have been some pretty terrible Dracula films out there, particularly in the 60s and 70s. I mean, there was some softcore, well, not even some, there were some hardcore porn films with Dracula.
Goodness.
Yeah, a lot of real cheap, trashy films, I think he's one of those characters right up there with like Jesus and Sherlock Holmes, who's been portrayed on film more than almost any other character,
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, I think that's what's so interesting is that it doesn't matter how old you are, what your demographic, everybody knows Dracula, knows the iconography of Dracula, and it just carries on and on.
Yeah, and I think even if they haven't necessarily seen a Dracula film, you could take the picture of Bela Lugosi and show it to a 4 or 5 year old, say, "Who is this?" They'd say Dracula.
That's very true. Yeah, Brian, have you seen any of those classic Universal horror movies?
No, I actually haven't.
So who was your first Dracula, Brian?
Well, I was 12 when the Coppola one came out.
Oh, okay.
So that was kind of I mean, well, you know.
I mean, you had been, but you were familiar with that.
Absolutely. I was going to say that, like, cinematically is what I was thinking. But, like, you know, of course, silly as it sounds, maybe like Scooby-Doo or, you know, the cartoon. Sure. You have, like, the classic, you know, widow's peaked, caped, you know, Dracula. I was very familiar with who he was, definitely. But
yeah, I think that the popular conception of Dracula is some combination of Bela Lugosi and Christopher Lee, and kind of the versions that both of those actors played.
Yeah, I think that's very accurate. Yeah, and yet when you read Stoker, it's a slightly different conception. You know?
Yeah,
a little more Coppola-esque, but even Coppola kind of you know, put his own take on it. So, but Stoker's, I mean, he never really mentions a cape until Dracula is seen by Harker scaling down the side of the building.
Right.
His cloak billowing out around him. But that's as far as he goes about mentioning a cape. The cape was something that was more of a device they did for the Broadway, or actually the stage show, not even Broadway, when it was first done in England.
And that was Lugosi?
Well, in England it was, oh gosh, I'm going to blank on the name now because it's late and I'm tired. But no, it was a different actor in England playing Dracula, but when they brought the play to America, that's when Lugosi took over the role. And the reason he had the opera cape on was, again, it took place in a sort of British home, and they wanted someone to be dressed as he would be coming to dinner at that time in the 1920s to a sort of British home, so you get the kind of tuxedo with the tailcoats and all that. But the cape was basically because there was a point in there where he's surrounded by Harker and Seward and all these guys with their crosses, and he disappears, which they did by having a trap door in the floor, and putting him in a cape helped sell that illusion. To pull the cape up around himself and go through the trap door, and the cape had fallen after him, and it looked more like he had just disappeared.
Well, and the book is out right now, and it can be purchased from your website if you want an autographed copy. It's also, I'm pretty sure it's on Amazon and everywhere else, right, Bruce?
It's on Amazon, should be in Barnes & Noble stores by now. So, yeah, pretty much anywhere you go to buy your books. But, yes, if you go to brucecivally.com, you can order an autographed copy.
And that's BRUCESCIVALLY.com. SCIVALLY.com. And we have a brand new James Bond movie out, which I feel like we have the James Bond expert with us, so we would be missing a great opportunity if we didn't discuss it with you. Can you hang out with us for a couple more minutes and talk
Sure,
Spectre?
absolutely.
All right, so the new James Bond movie is out. It is Spectre, and it's open to about $71 million, which is enough to make it the number 2 James Bond opening of all time. This is, of course, movie number 24, and it's number 4 for Daniel Craig. Is it the last? We don't know, but I liked this movie. I did not love this movie. And I have not discussed it with either of you, but Brian, I have not discussed it with you at all. Why don't we do our non-spoiler take, and then we can sort of get into it a little bit if we need to.
Mm-hmm.
So, Bruce, would you mind leading us off? What's your non-spoiler take on Spectre?
Well, I agree with you. I didn't love it, but I liked it. But it is, for me, my second favorite of the Daniel Craig movies. I thought Casino Royale was fabulous. The absolute best of the Bond films. And Quantum of Solace was just a total misfire for me. And Skyfall, everybody else was raving about it, but I felt that film had some major, major problems. So it didn't quite work for me like it did for everyone else. This one seemed a little more cohesive and consistent, and I liked that it was slightly more traditional Bond film.
Yeah.
Where we finally have M and Moneypenny and a Q and the whole gang there. And that's probably about all I can say without getting too much into the spoilers.
Brian, how about you?
Well, I will begin by saying that I am sort of the everyman here, the casual guy, because I'm not as familiar with Bond as the two of you are. I know you guys are both big fans and experts and whatnot, and so I'm just going because I've seen a handful of them and I like them, and so as far as the Daniel Craig Bonds, I agree. Casino Royale is just head and shoulders tops, just in terms of, I guess, being a Bond film, but just as a film. I mean, it had this big introduction, and he's learning along the way, and there's a lot to sort of take in. And now I feel like we're at the place where Bond is Bond, and he's used to the gadgets. He expects the car, and it feels a little more familiar, like you were saying, with Moneypenny and all these characters that we've come to expect. And I tried to think of a word when it was over, and it was boilerplate. It was, and when it has a fantastic opening at the Day of the Dead's celebration in Mexico City, and that was really cool and thrilling. And then there was about 30, maybe 40 minutes where I was just really bored. And sure. I was like, if I was watching this on TV, I might change the channel. I actually had that thought in the theater.
Yeah, I do feel that, I think it is the longest Bond film that's been made, and it doesn't need to be.
I was going to say, yeah,
I think they could have jumped the 20 minutes out.
Yeah, because if you're saying I was bored for 40 minutes, there's still an hour and 50 minutes movie left. And I enjoyed those hour and 50. And
you look at Goldfinger, which I think is probably the most entertaining of all of them. Just fires on all cylinders.
Yeah.
And that one's under 2 hours.
Right. And I felt like once it kicked into gear, I enjoyed it. Like, I didn't love it, but I did enjoy the ride. So that's kind of my non-spoiler.
So this is our non-spoilers.
Yeah.
I think. Okay. So at this point, if you've listened up to now and you're on the fence, it seems like basically even from Brian, it's basically a recommendation.
Yeah, it's fine. And I think if you want to go see like an action film and a new Bond adventure, like, you're not going to dislike it. But I think we'd all agree it's not our favorite.
Okay. So at this point we can get into a little bit of a spoiler conversation, and let me just start things off. The big mystery box thing that's been sort of plaguing movies over the past several years. Thank you, J.J. Abrams, is in full effect here, and it's the big mystery about who Christoph Waltz was playing, because all the press material said he's playing a character called Oberhauser, but everybody who knows James Bond was like, well, he's obviously Blofeld, because it's about Spectre, and Spectre is they're the villains from the early films, and they're led by Spectre, and there's nobody named, and so it was kind of, they protested a little too much when they said that Christoph Waltz was not playing Blofeld. Now, as a fan of the series, number one, I didn't find the revelation that Christoph Waltz was in fact Blofeld. I didn't find that particularly either shocking or egregious. I was just whatever. But what I felt was egregious was to be like, oh, and by the way, Blofeld and Bond are like estranged step brothers, essentially, foster brothers.
I couldn't help but think, as I was coming out of even before the movie was over, I couldn't help but think that, gosh, this sure is like Austin Powers and Goldmember.
Dude, I was just going to bring that up. Yes.
Yeah. It's,
please go on.
Too much like Austin Powers and Goldmember in some ways. Yes.
Yeah. Which is funny, because in that film, I feel like the only reason they even did that was because Star Wars was coming out at the time, and so it was like, let's just throw in this cheeky little joke about, Austin, I'm your brother, blah blah blah, whatever. And I had the same feeling when they did that in this movie. It just felt like this tossed away, like, oh, okay.
And even if there weren't such a movie as Austin Powers and Goldmember, I don't particularly like Blofeld basically being, a guy who never got over his issues of feeling deprived of his father's love by James Bond. That's not a supervillain to me.
And even if he was going to do it, I didn't buy any of it. Like, I didn't feel it. He said it, but I didn't feel it.
Right.
I would agree with that.
Well, and Bruce, I would love, for the sake of our listeners who maybe are not familiar with all this, I would love if you could maybe do an abridged version of, what is Blofeld's significance in this series, in this mythology? Because he is sort of the Moriarty, at least in the early goings of the Bond films.
He was in 3 of Fleming's novels. He was in Thunderball initially, then On Her Majesty's Secret Service, which is the key one. And then You Only Live Twice. So those are the only 3 novels that he appears in. But when they came to making the movies, they integrated Spectre and Blofeld into almost all of the Connery films, and of course On Her Majesty's Secret Service. So he's plays a much bigger role in those. And initially was just this kind of icy, emotionless, almost robotic supervillain bad guy. By the time you get to Diamonds Are Forever, he's very charming.
And comical almost.
Yes. Well, that whole film was much more played for laughs. That was sort of the beginning of the Roger Moore era. Began with Diamonds Are Forever.
Sure.
But yeah, certainly in On Her Majesty's Secret Service, that is one of my absolute favorite Bond films.
Mine too. Partly
because it is so close to the novel, and I think the way Blofeld is portrayed in that by Telly Savalas is pretty spot on.
Well, and you mentioned, I mean, I think what Telly Savalas is able to convey is that he's a physical match for Bond, in addition to sort of, a psychological match. And that was a problem I had with Christoph Waltz, is that I never bought him as, being sort of this mirror image, that he's a kind of a sprightly guy, Christoph
He's
Waltz.
Almost cuddly in the film, which is a threat,
Yeah, and so that was a problem that I had, was that he wasn't imposing enough physically or dark enough to be sort of the master planner or something like that. So it's almost like at some point they were like, hey, we should have Christoph Waltz be Blofeld. And that's one of those like casting ideas where everybody kind of gives themselves a high five and, they go out for lunch and, they call it a day early because it's such a brilliant idea on paper. But I feel like in execution, it's almost like they're like, oh, well, he'll make it work in the delivery. And I just feel like he wasn't given a lot to work with beyond just the novelty of being cast in that role.
Well, he was super easily outwitted in that room when Bond was like tied up to that machine. I never really felt threatened by him.
Sure.
Except, when he was in shadow, because you're like, then he was,
at the end of the film.
Yeah.
Oh, and in the beginning when he's in the
yes. Yeah, but I just mean like that whole scenario where Bond was, tied up to that machine and everything. It just felt really easy for them to get out of there.
Wouldn't a supervillain by this point know that you never let James Bond keep his watch?
Hasn't he seen any of the movies?
I mean, at least Le Chiffre, stripped Bond naked before he tortured him.
Right. Well, and now that's actually a good tangent, right? Because I think, if anything, this film is demonstrating sort of this uncomfortable fissure between what we've seen up till now, which is the quote unquote realistic James Bond, and then, the traditional expectations that we have of these films, which is kind of heightened reality and, the megalomaniac that wants to conquer the world. And I think some of the problems that we're seeing, certainly in the reactions to this film, are people don't know what kind of Bond to expect.
Well, and I think that's kind of an issue because of the Craig films where, again, Casino Royale I think is a fabulous film. Quantum of Solace, it seemed like they were just making a Jason Bourne movie, It's so much like a Jason Bourne film and not a Bond film. And I think all of them are kind of heavily influenced by the Batman series of Christopher Nolan.
Right.
Certainly Skyfall.
Yeah, Skyfall. That was Batman versus the Joker, basically, So, yeah, for me, it's like particularly after Quantum of Solace, I came out just really pining for, The Spy Who Loved Me, something just light and silly and fun. That's just a really good romp,
Well, and now in your book, James Bond: The Legacy, which, and I want to point out you did co-write that with John Cork. I mean, that takes us up through.
Die Another Day.
That's through Die Another Day, which you didn't know at the time that would be the last of the Brosnan films.
No, we didn't. I actually rewatched that one recently to see if it was as problematic as I recalled. And it was. I enjoyed Brosnan as Bond, and certainly in GoldenEye and Tomorrow Never Dies, I thought he was terrific. In the latter two films, to me, he became sort of the emotionally dependent Bond. You know, he gets way too involved with the women who he's hardly met. You know?
Well, I feel like Brosnan was a better Bond than they gave him to play sometimes. In that, you know, you can even in, like, for example, The World's Not Enough. You know, they give him these moments where you get to see the sort of the tension between who he is and what he does, and you know, when he has to, I mean, spoiler, but the movie's like 16 years old, when he has to kill Sophie Marceau, you know, and the way he plays that moment. I mean, you can, like, that's the stuff that he was pining to do, and I just feel like, to some extent, I mean, that's what he wanted to do, and they gave him, you know, here's your invisible car, and here's the ice castle or whatever, you know.
Right. Well, and you know, I always say with the invisible car, if you're going to create an invisible car, you should make it a Nissan Prius or a Toyota Prius. You shouldn't make it an Aston Martin. The Aston Martin, it may be invisible, but it's one of the loudest cars on the planet. You hear it coming from a mile away. So
I mean, so the Brosnan era is over, and now you can sort of look at that in hindsight. Let's take as just as a hypothetical that this is the last Craig film, and it's kind of up in the air whether he comes back or not. But if it is, would you consider the Daniel Craig era a success overall?
Overall, I would. If this film misfired, I probably wouldn't. But I mean, this film is not great, but it's good enough. You know.
Okay.
I think for most of the hardcore fans, I mean, you probably, well, we all know a lot of the same people. They were all over at the premiere in London, and you know, just being very, very effusive about the film, having seen it there. So it's, you know, I think it gives the old line Bond fans at least enough of what they expect from a Bond movie to feel satisfied with it. And yeah, for me, it's like if they end the Craig run with this film, I think it's a nice coda to his run of films. And I would actually rather like them to recast the role now and start afresh and maybe go in a different direction that would be more the traditional, you know, old line Bond type film.
See, that's interesting. I'm at a place where I'd like to see at least one more from Craig where he gets to do, as you're saying, the sort of the traditional straight ahead Bond movie before he checks out, because I feel like we still haven't gotten that from him. We still haven't gotten the sort of the Goldfinger equivalent from Daniel Craig.
No, we haven't. But you know, I feel like too, as much as I would love to see a film that's more in line with Goldfinger or The Spy Who Loved Me, that's, you know, just again a fun movie, a little lighter, you know, full of all the sexism and the misogyny and everything else we associate with those old films. I'd like to see that, but I think a lot of the younger viewers who have been turned on to Bond by the Daniel Craig films would probably hate that, you know. So as much as I'd like to see it, it would probably end up being a huge bomb at the box office.
Sure.
So, because times have changed, you know, my taste haven't. But times have.
Well, and yeah, you know, I'm sure a lot of people who are listening are kind of like Brian, where they're familiar with the franchise, they're not as sort of immersed in it. If you had to tell somebody comes up to you and they say, Bruce, recommend me 5 Bond movies, and which would be your 5 that you would want to tell somebody who is familiar with the franchise but not, you know, intimately familiar with it, let's say?
Well, the ones that come immediately to mind, my 2 favorite are From Russia with Love and On Her Majesty's Secret Service.
Sure.
Because I think those are just really good spy stories altogether. Goldfinger, one of the most entertaining, I think. Spy Who Loved Me, again, I think is the best of the Roger Moore films, and maybe I feel that way because it's the first I saw in the theater, but that one really works for me. And then one more, Casino Royale.
Casino Royale. Oh, that's a good selection.
Yeah.
How do you feel about the Dalton films?
When I saw The Living Daylights, I had mixed feelings about it. I was kind of let down by the film, but I liked where he was taking the character. As time's gone on and I've gone back and rewatched him, I feel that one of the things Dalton lacked, and he doesn't lack it if you meet him in person or if you see him in other films sometimes, but as Bond, he was totally lacking in charm.
Sure.
And no matter what other qualities Bond has, I think whoever's playing Bond has to have some degree of charm.
Right.
Yeah. So, and Dalton just didn't convey that to me as Bond. I think, to me, he's the angry Bond.
Angry Bond.
The Bond who's just on the edge of just totally snapping and going off the deep end,
Well, and you see that in License to Kill.
Yeah.
For me, I'll always have a soft spot for the Dalton films because I think I was like 7 when The Living Daylights came out, and so I was fully aware of the hype machine heralding the transition from Roger Moore to Timothy Dalton, which, for me, I mean, Roger Moore had been James Bond all my life, and the idea that, oh my gosh, now I'm seeing this orderly transition of power. It was like the presidency, one presidency ended, and we moved on to the next. So for me, the first Bond movie that I saw the whole way through was actually The Living Daylights.
Yeah, and I think generally, when you ask people who their favorite Bond is, it tends to be the one they first saw in any of the films, whether it was on TV or in the theater. So for me, it was Sean Connery because, I was introduced to the films through the movies on ABC back in the 1970s.
Oh, sure. Yeah, well, I remember back in like the early 2000s, I was working at American Eagle, and I was a big Bond fan even back then. I remember one of the girls I worked with was like, "Oh, you like James Bond? Which one is your favorite movie?" And I said, "Oh, any of the ones with Sean Connery." And she says, "Was he a villain?" Like she had no idea that Connery was James Bond. And which is sad, but the ironic thing is that now people are like, "Who's Sean Connery?"
Yeah, and you have a whole generation who got introduced to James Bond not through the movies, but through the GoldenEye game.
Right.
Sure.
Through the video game, yeah.
First-person shooter games,
So, and any other thoughts on Spectre as we kind of wind up this conversation?
Oh, well, my other impression on it was, as one of my friends pointed out on Facebook, he said, if you don't believe in the genius of Roger Deakins as a cinematographer, Spectre, and then go back and watch Skyfall. Skyfall is a really beautiful film.
Skyfall is gorgeous.
And, it didn't, at least it had that going for it, And this film I thought was just rather drab, which is not what you want from a Bond film. Bond films, the old Connery films had that Ted Moore cinematography that's that Technicolor heightened reality,
Well, one thing I will say though, and I agree with what you just said, but I did appreciate the scope. There were these terrific overhead shots where you see Bond as this sort of figure on the landscape, and they really, I mean, first of all, the budget was just obscene on this thing. It was something like $250 million, which,
wow,
which to put in perspective, that's $100 million more than Jurassic World cost.
Wow.
And that had dinosaurs.
Well, at $250 million, it's 250 times more than Dr. No cost.
There you go. Yeah, and so, I think that's an obscene amount of money. I have no idea why they would spend that much. But despite all of that, again, it's been really interesting because just as I sort of work through my own reactions to the film, I'm kind of like, well, it's all right. It's fine. And I think this is one of the advantages of a series like this where you say, well, even if this one wasn't like a home run for me, they'll get it next time. Like there will always be another one.
Well, I say this all the time that it's remarkable to me that the series has gone on now for over 50 years, and it's really a little family-run series. It's still the Broccoli family controlling it, and I feel like if someone were to come up to me and say, "Bruce, we want you to write the next James Bond film," your first reaction would be, "Wow, that's great." My next reaction would be, "Holy crap, what do I do?" Because they'd be like, hit every possible storyline with this series. It's like coming up with a villain in this and not making it seem derivative and trying to make it seem fresh. It's a horrible task they have to face every time out with one of these. Plus, the fan base is going to either love you or crucify you.
Right. Well, and one thing I've said in the past is that the James Bond series continue. They keep making James Bond movies because they keep making James Bond movies. Like, it's just, at this point, it's sort of a perpetual motion machine of pop culture. You know,
Yeah, it's one of those. Every 2 or 3 years, we have to have a new James Bond film, and
it's just something that you do.
It's something for the dads to take their sons to.
So Bruce, I mean, what do you attribute that to? I mean, beyond sort of just the idea that it is this institution, how has it reached this point where it picked up enough velocity where it just will never stop?
Because I think the producers have been very canny, and Barbara Broccoli, I think particularly, with her input into the series. I was asked this when Craig was first cast by a reporter from a Detroit newspaper. Why did I think the series had lasted so long? And I said that James Bond's like Madonna. Every 3 to 5 years, they reinvent him and picks up a new audience. So, I mean, I felt if they had kept doing the Connery-style films into the 1970s, the series wouldn't have lasted. You had to have Roger Moore do it with a lighter touch,
Sure.
And then the 80s come along, and Roger Moore's films get darker, and then you get the Dalton era. So, the series keeps kind of reinventing itself to fit the era in which the films are made and to fit what audiences expect from films.
It's interesting to hear you talk, and you think about how there's this alternate reality somewhere where Connery just played, where he just kept going. And,
he probably would have. I mean, the reason he left the series is because he wanted to be made a full producer along with Broccoli and Saltzman, and they felt this guy was a nobody actor when we found him. Why do we want to cut him in on our profits? So
yeah.
Well, and that's why he walked after You Only Live Twice.
And I mean, arguably, for as beloved as he is in the role, that was the best thing that could have happened was recasting the role in terms of maintaining, in terms of turning the series into something that is immortal.
Absolutely, and I think the producers had the right attitude at that time when Connery walked. They said, well, there have been 12 Tarzans, so. Where it's the character that people come to see, not necessarily the actor playing it. Although I would argue that, I go back to the Daniel Craig movies because I enjoy seeing him play James Bond, even if the movies themselves aren't that great.
Well, and you mentioned On Her Majesty's Secret Service. That one, I think the world has sort of come around to your point of view, which is that it is kind of this hidden gem within this series.
Yeah, I think it is. I like it because for the same reason as From Russia with Love, where it's one where Bond isn't just totally relying on gadgets to get him out of the situations. It's more of an adventure film, and Majesty's has a great scope to it. The action is really well done. The ski scenes, it's just a kick-ass film. And I think, everyone's like, oh, it's a shame Connery didn't do that. Imagine Connery and Diana Rigg. But if Connery had done it, it wouldn't have been Diana Rigg. Diana Rigg's there because with a weak actor playing Bond, they needed a strong actress. If they had Connery, they would have gotten some other, Miss Italy or whatever to play opposite him. And I think the tone of the movie would have been very different. I think it would have been a more Connery-esque Bond, whereas, Lazenby's Bond isn't quite a carbon copy of Connery. He's a more
vulnerable.
Vulnerable, thank you. More vulnerable Bond than Connery was.
Yeah, I think Lazenby, obviously made a bad decision, but I mean, I do think he gets a bit of a bum rap because, he does what's asked of him in that film.
Yeah, and the scene with Mark Anstracco is where his lack of acting ability really shows. But that scene is just, I don't think any actor could have pulled it. It's nothing but just this huge exposition scene, which is kind of necessary for you to understand all the mechanics of what's going to happen from that point on. But I don't think any actor could have made that scene really play,
Sure. Well, and assuming this is the end of the road for Daniel Craig, who would you like to see? And this is always one of those questions, like it's fraught because I mean, probably we have no idea who the next James Bond would be. But if you had a voice in this process, who would you think of as good for the role?
That's a good question, and I really don't have an answer for it. I mean, of course, with all the flap recently about should Idris Elba
sure.
Bond or whatever, it's like I don't see why he shouldn't. I said in another interview I did that, again, I feel one of the big qualifications for anyone playing Bond is to just have to have a lot of charisma, and he certainly has that.
Yeah.
And it would certainly be a, fresh, different take on the character,
Yeah.
But, I really don't know. I mean, I hear all these other names bandied about, like, Tom Hardy and, Tom Hiddleston and so on. I think you have to be named Tom to be in contention. But I think if Craig doesn't do it, I think whoever's going to end up playing Bond is probably someone that we're not aware of right now, just like no one would have ever guessed Daniel Craig before he got the role.
Absolutely. And Bruce, if people want to reach out to you, do you have any forums online that people can find you?
Well, yes, you can always get me on Facebook. Just go to Bruce Scivally on Facebook, and I'm there. And again, brucecivally.com if you want to order an autographed copy of one of my books.
Perfect. And thank you so much, Bruce. And we look forward to having you back on. Hopefully, when the next Bond movies come out, we'd love to chat with you about that one too.
I look forward to it. Thank you.
Well, that was pretty awesome to get to talk to him. I've been reading Bruce's work for years now, and I still remember saving up for weeks and weeks and weeks back in 2002 so I could buy James Bond: The Legacy, because I used to go to Barnes and Noble and just read it in bits and pieces whenever I could.
Nice.
So, Brian, any other thoughts about Spectre? We've got a lot to talk about.
Yeah. Well, I guess just, I feel like you and I have both been like, yeah, it's pretty all right. It's pretty whatever. So I want to get down to like the nitty gritty here. Like, let's look at this as the story. Like, what did you think of the story here? Because like I said, to me, it felt I think I used the word boilerplate, and like, it felt like it just kind of unfolded in a way that didn't really catch me off guard. And I guess we're behind the spoiler wall here, so I was trying to guard myself a little bit here, but there's a lot of what's that?
Don't guard yourself.
Right. But I mean, there were revelations to be had that apparently played with a lot of the canon, and I admittedly don't know a whole lot of that, so they didn't affect me one way or the other than the fact that they were a little underwhelming reveals. And I think because, we had compared it to the Khan reveal in Star Trek Into Darkness, but, I'm familiar with Khan, so I understand what they were trying to do and tease, but I'm not as familiar with the mythology of Bond, so I didn't have like a gasp of breath moment with the reveal, other than to realize that it felt kind of weird that this guy was related to Bond, sort of like a foster brother or something like that.
So that is new. That's an innovation of this film. That is not in any way a part of the previous canon.
Right. Blofeld, played by Christoph Waltz, is Bond's sort of like foster brother for a couple years.
Brother, right. That's something new, and I would argue it's the equivalent of finding out that Leia is Luke's sister. Where for us, I think we were at the age where we just roll with it. But if you talk to many older fans, they were like, "Really?"
Right.
And I think that's what this is like because
at first I thought you were being facetious. That's why I laughed.
But I mean, in the sense that it's just one reveal too many.
Right.
And it's unnecessary.
Right.
It's like
unnecessary.
It's almost like, and I'm secretly Blofeld, and I'm your brother, and, it's like, okay,
right.
We don't need all this. It's too much. And it to me, it reminds me kind of when Sam Raimi was making the Spider-Man movies, one thing he always said was when it came time to pick a villain for each film, he always said, well, we want to find a way to make it personal. So that it's not just Spider-Man against a bad guy. It's something personal for Peter Parker.
Mm-hmm.
And we can see the Skyfall version and the Spectre version in the sense that in Skyfall, they found a way. It felt very organic the way they tied in Silva, Javier Bardem with Bond, and the stakes were upped, and so the I would say that's the equivalent of like Spider-Man 2 with when Dr. Octopus is like this guy that Peter Parker looks up to, and it kind of works within the story, right? And then if you remember in Spider-Man 3, they introduced the Sandman, and in order to make it personal, they make him the guy who pulled the trigger that killed Uncle Ben. It was real convoluted and idiotic. Remember that?
Yeah, I do, yeah.
And that's what this felt like to me.
Right.
Where it was just one step too far, and you didn't need it to be, right? Because there was this whole mystery box of who's Christoph Waltz going to play? And it's like everybody's like, well, he's the head of Spectre, and Blofeld is the head of Spectre. So there was no secret.
Right.
So the fact that they tried to set it up as a secret and then sort of went through all these contortions to do it, by the time we got to the reveal, it's like, I don't care, you know?
Right. Well, along those lines, too, I mean, these recent Bond films are very story rich. Right, like it's not like the Pierce Brosnan ones. I mean, like Die Another Day or something like that. Like I don't know what it's about. Like it's just about this device, and then he's got to stop the device, and it's more about like the flash and the sizzle and the sexiness and whatnot. But these, you know, they try to really explain why Bond is the way he is, and what has made him this way, and what's pushing him forward, and where does he come from. And so, I guess with that in mind. In Casino Royale, I mean, I thought it worked.
Sure.
Aces. And no pun intended. And, you know, you had Vesper, what was it? Vesper Lind was her name?
Uh-huh. Yeah. Eva Green.
Eva Green. Phenomenal. Like she totally felt like his match, and you totally bought their love story, and you totally bought why he was devastated, you know, when she perished, and how it sort of pushed him forward into becoming this, you know, roguish sort of assassin guy, right? I mean, totally
betrays him and then dies.
Yes, and just the whole arc of that just completely worked just as a story. It didn't even have to be a Bond film, right? Totally. It could just been just a straight story. So with this one, did you feel they try to set him up again with sort of a love of his life sort of scenario with Madeline Swan, I believe her name?
Yeah.
Did you
Leah Seydoux, I think it's
Seydoux, I believe you pronounce it. Yeah. So what did you feel about that relationship? I mean, did you buy that at all? Or
I bought the underpinnings of the relationship. I love the fact the daughter of Mr. White, his sort of antagonist from you know, his first two movies, and I think that's a great way of tying in, of making it personal, you know. Mm-hmm. Their relationship did not work for me. I just didn't buy it.
Yeah, it just felt necessary. It didn't feel organic.
Right. It felt very obligatory. Like, okay, here, you know, we need to have the girl, and I mean, there was just no chemistry there. And it's, you know, I think it was noticeable because we've seen Craig.
Yes.
Have chemistry.
That's kind of my point. Yep.
Yeah, I mean, we saw him with certainly with Eva Green, but even the girl in Quantum of Solace, whose name escapes me. But I mean, there was kind of an interesting sizzle there, and this felt completely flat.
Yeah, and it's just things that stood out because they seem to be reaching for something more, right?
Right. Yeah.
And so I think that's why it stands out a little bit more, because
there's the moment where he's like tied up in the chair, and then she sort of embraces him, and she's like, "I love you," and like people busted out laughing,
right?
Because it just is. Where did that come from? You know,
right? But it was totally set up to be something that could have possibly worked, but it just, which is funny because this was something else that I wanted to mention that I thought was kind of funny we hadn't talked about yet is Monica Bellucci,
right?
And
who's in it for about like 2.5 minutes? The way that the commercials are hyping her up.
Yeah.
But she's the new M, like the way they're, you know.
But what I thought was kind of interesting about her is, again, you know, with this Craig run here, they're trying to really hammer home story equally in part with action and whatnot. And so that's why I'm, you know, being a little bit more critical about the love interest.
Because they've set the bar themselves.
Yes, and I'm trying to jump back to the Bellucci thing. So what I was going to say was, with the same plot with the Pierce Brosnan sort of more flashy ones, you would have like just gone with it because it's like, well, it's Bond and the Bond girl, and then it's really about him stopping the satellite kind of a thing.
Okay,
and it was funny because then in his moment with the Monica Bellucci character, it was, she comes home from her husband's funeral, who she admittedly wasn't necessarily in love with, but she respected, it seemed. And he is basically trying to, get information from her and whatnot. And he basically seduces her.
Yeah.
But it was funny because I was like, I'm not buying this. like Pierce Brosnan coming up and being charming and flashing his eyebrow and whatnot. You'd just be like, yeah, that probably, I could see that. You know what I mean? But like Craig just seemed kind of like, I don't know, you're kind of forcing this woman up against a wall here. And her just like completely just dropping, her panties for him. I was just like, well, I know that's supposed to happen, but I don't know. It felt a little out of place for me.
Do you think a part of that is because Monica Bellucci is a little bit more mature, and so that seems like something that a more immature person would do, but maybe there's like a perceptual thing because she's actually older than Daniel Craig slightly, I think by a couple of years. You think that's part of it, maybe? Because it's not that dissimilar from what he does in Casino Royale. There's that Italian girl.
That's right.
Who, it's almost exactly the same thing, but we don't have as much trouble buying it in that scenario.
Yeah, and I don't know why that stood out to me so much, but it just kind of did.
Yeah, there was a little bit of like kind of a rapey vibe, which,
depends how you're looking at it, I suppose. You know what I mean? Yeah, you could. I mean, if you're just sucked up into the world, hopefully it is. Obviously, that isn't what they're going for, but
right. But I mean, when we're talking about the game of perception,
whereas in the other Bond films, I could see it feeling sexy.
See, I mean, you know what it is. I think. And this alludes to something that I mentioned earlier. I mean, it's a result of them trying to split the difference between realistic 007 and sort of world-beating megalomaniac 007.
Sure.
And when you watch some of these Roger Moore movies, I mean, my gosh, he's like just one step removed from being a sexual predator, basically. The way he sort of inflicts himself on these women, it's like, dude, like it's very. I mean, because the tone has changed. Even into the Brosnan era, they dialed it way back. Because
sure.
Watch, certainly some of the Connery ones, but Connery has this animal magnetism. But when Roger Moore does it, it's like, dude, you need help. You have a problem. This is not okay what you're doing to these women. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So, I mean, well, and all these things, these are my thoughts and my criticisms and my whatnot. And you put it well. It's only because they put the bar up themselves.
Yeah.
Right. But those things aside, I did have a lot of fun with this movie.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, but you can't help but call those things out because of what they've laid out for us. But it still is like a fun ride.
Well,
I mean, would you agree with that?
I completely agree, and I'm looking forward to seeing it again. And one thing I'll say is there's a very specific visual tick that I've been waiting for 3 movies now. The traditional, the opening thing in front of every James Bond movie, and they had a version of that in the beginning of Casino Royale, and then they had the gun barrel thing at the end of Quantum of Solace and Skyfall. So with this one, that was when it started. I was like, are they going to put the gun barrel back where it belongs?
Oh, funny.
And they did. And I
didn't even think about it.
Like my brain just like released endorphins at that,
Yeah.
Because I gotta say, I mean, you know what it is? It's, to me, seeing that gun barrel at the beginning of a film, it's exactly the same as when the Star Wars logo comes up and we hear that blast of John Williams' music.
Sure. Yeah.
It's just suddenly you're willing to grade on a curve a little bit.
Right. Sure.
Because of this thing that and I can't think of any other series other than Star Wars that has like the consistency of that. Every episode we get that. So the fact that they brought that back finally to the beginning where it belongs, it's hard to explain, but it just made me really, really happy.
Nice. Good.
So for me, it's like, it's like we talked about before, like, I very much want to see Daniel Craig come back because I'd like to, like, I feel like, okay, we've done Bond Begins.
Mm-hmm. Right.
that's fine. I enjoyed it. It was a great ride. We don't need. There's no more depths to plumb in Bond's backstory. I think we've pretty much picked that bone dry. And now let's move on. This one, I mean, you and I talked about this off mic. It had so many sort of plot and thematic similarities to Mission Impossible. There's the Rogue Nation, the one that just came out. That like, did they have spies in each other's production companies? Because
right.
I mean, there's like the evil organization that's setting up, terrorist attacks all over the world in favor of their agenda, and then our organization, the good guy spies are under fire.
Right. Oh, yes. And there was even like a similar scene where the good guys have to reconvene undercover in like an abandoned apartment with nothing but a table in the room.
In London.
In London. Yes, and that was both movies.
So I enjoyed Rogue Nation a lot more.
Ditto.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
like,
I mean,
Rogue Nation I've seen twice, and I'll probably watch again.
Yeah. Yeah, I've seen it twice also. Yeah, and I mean that's the thing is I always want James Bond to be the best. So this to me, it's like it's not the best Bond movie, but it's also not the worst Bond movie. It's just a Bond movie.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you feel like it should be more fun?
Yeah, I mean, I'd like to. We've used the Christopher Nolan analogy a bit, and I remember after The Dark Knight Rises ended, and Lord knows we've talked about that enough on the show, but that my thing was like, okay, we've done this version of Batman. Mm-hmm. Now let's get back to something that has room for the more fantastical stuff, the more fanciful stuff. Mm-hmm. I'd like to keep this version of Bond, but maybe expand out the realm, like 1 degree in this direction, 1 degree in that direction, so that we have a little bit more room for stuff that's more classical.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
That's where, I mean, because the truth is, I'm a huge fan of Daniel Craig, and as far as I'm concerned, I'd love to see him do at least another one.
Yeah. Right.
But any other thoughts on Spectre?
No, it's just it's funny because I feel like all I've done is nitpick it a little bit.
Yeah,
those are, like we said, those are the things that they've sort of set up previously, and so I looked at them a little more critically. I was judging the story more than one might expect. And I felt like they laid down some threads that I would have liked to have seen carried out or handled just a little bit more delicately. But again, I mean, it's 2.5 hours. Well, actually, yeah, it was a little too long too. But,
a little too long.
but I walked out enjoying it. There was one little lull in there, but otherwise, it's fun.
On the positive, one thing I want to say is I really liked Ralph Fiennes' role that they gave him.
Yeah, I was about to bring that up actually, and then I kind of lost it. But yeah, they give him something to do here.
They give him something to do, and the fact that he's an ally and he's not he's not the chief. Like, I'm gonna have his badge. He's fighting the fight. He's with Bond. He's
right.
I enjoyed that, and I'd like to see more. I like the fact that. Just carrying that Mission Impossible metaphor forward. We've got, there's M and Tanner and Moneypenny and Q are this unit. Yep. And, I hope they do carry them forward. I think I enjoyed everyone's contributions to the story.
Would you support if they brought in Jeremy Renner for the next go around to just be part of the team?
I would be disappointed if they don't. That's just to be expected at this point, right? as a potential replacement for Bond, who will never actually replace Bond.
right.
Just waiting in the wings, But, yeah. But one thing that is for certain is that we'll be back in a few years to talk about the next James Bond movie. And there's something reassuring about that.
Sure.
But with that, I think that's a good place to wrap up this conversation.
If you see fit.
I think so. Well, Brian, I mean, where can people find you online?
You know what? You want to know a fun fact? Go to google.com, type in Brian James Hall, and look at the first image. That's all I'm going to say.
Okay, I'm doing it right now.
Have we not talked about this?
Is it the apple with your face in it?
Yes.
Okay, I'm looking at it. It's now taken up residence in my nightmares.
Yep, it's a Photoshop picture that Sean Coyle, your friend and mine, former co-host of this podcast, he made of me. I don't know what he did. Somehow he engineered it, so that's the first thing that comes up when Brian James Hall is typed in. I actually love that. I love that that's what comes up. It's not like a nice actual picture of me. It's a weird picture of my face in Apple. Anyway, or you can find me writing for the Bob's Burgers comic book. I'm in issues, or my writing's featured in issues 1 through 3 from the volume 2 set that is currently out in stores right now or available online. And yeah, that's probably the best places to find me.
Well, there we go. And as for me, you can find me at a bunch of places. I'm on Twitter, unlike Brian Hall, who is on Twitter but isn't. Is but isn't.
Is but isn't.
I'm on Twitter at Zaki's Corner. That's ZAKIS Corner. It's also my website. Just add a .com to that. You can also find my movie reviews at Huffington Post as well as Philadelphia Weekly. Got some cool stuff coming up in the next couple weeks. We'll be talking about Trumbo, which is fantastic. I can't wait to discuss that with you. We'll also be talking about Creed, which is almost here. This is, Brian, this is like, the last 8 weeks of 2015, James Bond, Rocky Balboa, and Han Solo are all back in my life. This is pretty friggin' amazing. Yeah. So with that, on behalf of my colleague Brian Hall, and with big thanks to our special guest Bruce Scivally, my name is Zaki Hassan. This is the Movie Film Podcast. We'll see you in 2 weeks. But before we come back, make sure you go to iTunes or Stitcher Radio, write us a review, leave a star rating, let us know how we're doing. Thanks for listening.
Welcome, friends, it's the Movie Film Podcast. Movie Film Podcast, enjoy the show. Zaki and Brian are talking about movies. Movie Film Podcast on the radio.
You should do like a reenactment.
Oi, I'm not talking with an accent. I'm an American, and I'm going to save the president again. We're best friends. We box. I make the same jokes every time we jog. Terrorists. Uh-oh.